So today we're going to repot some orchids, and I'm going to give you some basic tips. I am not a professional by any means, but this has worked for me for quite a few years and I don't have any complaints yet. So we're going to go from there. This is an orchid that obviously does not need to be transplanted, but I want to show you this for the sake of how you can see what a healthy root looks like. This is what healthy roots look like. If you can see that one right there, it's nice and plump. These are the containers they come in, and they usually come in the sphagnum moss, which I encourage people after they're done blooming, usually get them out of the plastic and get them out of the moss. Orchid roots like to be aired out. They don't like to be wet all the time, and a lot of times in this combination of people have a tendency to overwater them. So generally they come in all different shapes and sizes, and some in worse shape than others. So we're just going to gently pull this out. So just by looking at this, I can see that number one, this wasn't an orchid pot. Number two, the pot was way too big for this little root zone on here that it has. So generally you only want the pot to be maybe an inch or two bigger than your the diameter of your roots. I usually like to soak them before I do anything to them. And I have a real good, well, it's my solution. I throw in some, a little bit of Super Thrive, a little bit of either liquid seaweed or fish and seaweed, and I'll just let them soak for 20 minutes, a half hour. Now we're going to clean up on the roots that, the one I've chosen to repot here for a little sample. So you can see where this one at one time had its own stems, flowers, everything else, but for whatever reason it has died out. So we're just going to go ahead and cut that off. And I've already cleaned my little pruners here. Kind of just hit them with some alcohol. And you never want to use your pruners or your scissors to go from one orchid to another. Always make sure you clean them in between. So I don't get too carried away. Some people are a little more aggressive. I'm not. They'll decay on their own, but you clean it up a little bit. And there is some nice new roots on here, but it has been struggling and stressed out for a while, obviously. Now we're going to get our medium that's been soaking for a while. And you want to make sure your orchid is not too deep. And it also likes to be tight, so I kind of like to snug it against the side of the pot, and then I'll either tie it in or I'll pin it in, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So we're going to throw some of this down there just to get it going, because it's if I don't, it's going to be too deep in the pot. Right there feels good to me. You want to make sure it's kind of snuggy and it feels good, and right there it feels like it's where it should be to me. So we're going to finish it up now, and you don't want your orchid wobbly in the pot. You know, if it's a windy day, squirrel comes by, it's going to take a while to root in, so you're going to encourage it to root in. You can use these little pins. They come in all different sizes. If you've got a small pot, you're going to need a small pin. Larger pot, larger pin. So we're just going to take and go through there so that it's kind of at a comfortable point, and then that pushes down over your little terracotta lip, and now you can see it's snuggy in there. Nothing's going to pull that out. Now is the last part. We're going to give it a little fertilizer. When I send the orchids home, I generally use the time release pellets because they don't have to worry about how and when to fertilize. That's a 9-month feeding on there, and that's really all you need. Now, when I'm at home and I'm watering my orchid, right now all my Phalaenopsis are in bloom. I'm going to use the blooming and rooting. And it keeps them going for a long time. Beautiful buds. And I always use the liquid seaweed. Sometimes the harvest fish and seaweed. Just diluted solution, maybe every other time that you water. And I prefer to use rainwater. I always got a bucket of rainwater going, and that's all I'll use on my orchids. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. It's very simple. People are intimidated by it, but orchids are really tough. In my opinion, people overlove them, and that's generally how you kill them.